Stride Audio Show.
Presented by Speak English with Us.
Quick question when IELTS asks, do you prefer mornings or evenings? Do you answer fast, or do you start building a whole life story first?
And then your answer sounds like it's still looking for a seat. You know the feeling. Your brain has the point, but your mouth takes the scenic route.
That's exactly the trap. You're not failing because your English is weak. You're getting lost in the order, so the answer arrives late and muddy.
This is a B1 level episode perfect for intermediate learners. Beginners, you are welcome to. And if you've ever blanked on a simple speaking question, this one's for you.
And here's the real issue. In IELTS Speaking, the examiner isn't waiting for a perfect mini essay. They want a clear answer, then a little support, then maybe one example.
Right. Answer first, expand second. That order sounds small, but it changes everything. It makes you sound calm, direct, and much easier to follow.
A lot of people do the opposite. They say, well, it depends, because, in the morning I usually... And suddenly the listener is chasing the main point like it's hiding.
Guilty. I've done that. I once answered a simple question like I was preparing a legal statement. Very dramatic, very unnecessary.
Same energy as opening a fridge and forgetting why you're there. You're standing in front of the question, but your mind is already wandering into the hallway.
Today, we're fixing that with one simple thinking pattern. Give the answer first, then support it. We'll use signposting, and we'll also talk about the primacy effect, which is just the idea that the first thing people hear sticks hardest.
So if your first line is clear, the examiner catches your position immediately. And later, you can back it up with a reason or a small story.
Exactly. That way, you're straight to the point without sounding rude, and you're not trapped in long, shaky explanations.
We'll show you how to give a clear answer, how to say in other words, when you need to simplify, and how to drop in, for instance, without sounding forced.
Stay with us for the whole episode, because by the end, you'll hear the difference between I think mornings are better and a messy answer that never really lands.
And later, we'll give you one tiny trick you can use in every part of IELTS speaking. But first, let's start with the problem itself. Let's sit inside that exam room for a second. The question is tiny, but your brain makes it huge.
The classic one is, do you prefer mornings or evenings? And people start thinking, wait, what's my full philosophy on time? That's where the spiral begins.
And the funny part is, you probably already know the answer in 2 seconds. The problem isn't your opinion. It's that you don't give a clear answer first.
Exactly. You start circling the runway instead of landing the plane. The examiner hears, well, maybe, sometimes, and still doesn't know where you stand.
So imagine this, you say, I prefer evenings. That's it. Clean, calm, no drama. Then you add, because I feel more relaxed after work.
That sounds natural. It's straight to the point, but not cold. It tells the listener the main idea immediately, and then you have space to breathe.
Let's make the pattern visible. Answer first, then a reason, then a tiny example if needed. That order is doing a lot of work for you.
I used to do the opposite. I'd open with a long setup like, well, it depends on the season, the weather, my mood, and whether I slept well. And by the end, I'd forgotten the question.
That's not an answer, that's a documentary introduction.
It really is. And IELTS is not asking for a podcast trailer. It wants a direct response that you can back it up with one small detail.
Here's a simple upgrade. If the question is, do you like cooking? Don't say, well, when I was younger, my family. Start with, yes, I do. Then explain, it helps me relax.
And if you want to stretch it a little, you can say, in other words, cooking gives me a break from screens. That second line is useful because it simplifies your meaning.
Nice. So in other words, is not decoration. It's a bridge. It helps the examiner follow your thinking without getting stuck in your long sentence.
And then, for instance, is your proof. You're not just saying, I like it. You're showing it.
For example, if the topic is free time, you can say, I prefer evenings because I can unwind. For instance, I usually go for a walk after dinner. That's clear and human.
That's the key. Direct answer, reason, example. No panic, no wandering.
Let's compare two answers. Bad version, well, mornings are sometimes nice because there are fewer people and I can think better, but evenings are also good and maybe that answer is moving, but it never arrives.
Good version. I prefer evenings because I feel calmer. For instance, after classes, I can finally focus on my own plans. Short, complete, memorable.
And notice what happened there. The second answer didn't waste energy proving everything. It just gave a clear answer and then supported it. That's why it sounds stronger.
Let's do a tiny practice. I'll ask a real IELTS-style question. Do you enjoy working alone or with other people?
I enjoy working alone because I can focus better and I don't get distracted by noise.
Good. Now back it up with one concrete example.
For instance, when I write scripts, I need quiet time.
Perfect. That's already much stronger than a long explanation with no center.
Now let's make it even more practical. If you freeze on stage, use this mental frame, answer first, then because, then example. You don't need fancy language. You need order.
And if the question feels weirdly simple, that's actually a gift. Simple questions are easier to structure. The danger is overthinking and turning a one-line opinion into a maze.
Which is why many candidates sound slower than they really are. The English is there, but the structure is missing.
And structure is what the examiner hears first. The primacy effect matters here. The first chunk of your answer shapes the whole impression.
So if your first chunk is clear, the listener relaxes. If it's muddy, they start working too hard to find your point.
And nobody wants to do extra homework during your speaking test.
Let's try another one. Do you prefer reading paper books or e-books? I'd say, I prefer e-books because they're easy to carry. Then I'd back it up with a small detail. For instance, I can read on the bus.
Nice. That answer is natural, direct, and easy to follow. It's not a memorized speech. It's a real response.
And that's the skill we want. Not memorizing answers, but training your brain to organize them fast.
So here's the practical drill for you today. When you hear a question, pause for 1 second, decide your position, and say the answer first. Then add one reason. Then add one reason. Then add one example if you need it.
And if you want to explain the same idea more simply, you can say in other words. If you want to make it vivid, use for instance.
That's the whole engine. Answer first, support second, example third.
And by the way, there is a phrase for this kind of direct opening. It's called straight to the point. We'll break it down later, but you're already using the thinking behind it.
Exactly. And once that order becomes automatic, your speaking sounds less like a search and more like a decision.
So the next time the examiner asks something ordinary, don't chase the perfect setup. Just land the answer first. Then build from there. So, Leo, some people might say this answer first approach sounds a bit rigid, right? Like, the test should be more about natural flow, not some strict formula.
I see that, Maya, but I think that idea misses the point. IELTS speaking isn't a casual chat. It's a test, and structure makes your answer clear and effective. Without it, you risk confusing the listener.
I get that. But what if rushing to answer first makes you sound too robotic, like you're just ticking boxes instead of talking naturally?
That's a fair concern, but actually, giving a clear answer first is exactly what native speakers do. It's not robotic, it's respectful of your listener's time. It helps them know where you stand.
Okay, but what if the question is complicated? Some topics need more context before you can give a real answer. Forcing an answer up front might make you skip important details.
That's true for complex discussions, but IELTS questions are usually straightforward. You don't have to cover everything at once. The test looks for clarity and support, not essays. Saying your opinion clearly first focuses the conversation.
Still, don't you think some learners could freeze trying to pick one short answer immediately? They might end up giving shallow responses instead of showing their full language skills.
Actually, being forced to organize your thoughts soon helps reduce that freezing. When you focus on one clear point, your brain isn't juggling too much. Don't forget, you can always add reasons and examples after.
I see your point, but I still worry that some students misunderstand this as just say anything quick and end up giving weak or rushed answers instead of thoughtful ones.
That's missing the whole picture. It's not about rushing or giving weak answers. It's about prioritizing clarity first, then developing your answer naturally. It's a simple yet powerful communication skill.
But wouldn't this approach create repetitive answers? Like always starting with I prefer or yes I do? That could get boring or predictable.
Good point. But variety is in how you expand, not in the opening line. The structure says open with your main idea, but the details, reasons, and examples give life and rhythm to your answer.
So you're saying the magic isn't in the exact words, but in the order you say them?
Spot on. Order guides the listener's expectations. If you start without a clear answer, you force them to guess your point. When you answer first, you lead and they follow easily.
Okay, but what about spontaneity? IELTS also wants you to sound spontaneous, not rehearsed. Could sticking to this formula hurt that vibe?
I don't think so. In fact, having a reliable structure frees you up to speak more fluently and naturally later on. You're less worried about what to say next because you've already given the core answer.
That makes sense. So structure here doesn't restrict, it actually supports spontaneity by clearing mental clutter.
Exactly. Spontaneity isn't about chaos. It's about confidence. And confidence comes from having a strong foundation. The answer first method builds that foundation.
Still, some argue that focusing on form like this could make people sound too formal or stiff instead of relaxed and conversational.
I understand that view, but the opposite is often true. Clear answers make your speech smoother and friendlier because you won't be searching for words or repeating yourself.
I suppose it depends on how you use it. If it becomes a rigid script, then sure, it feels unnatural. But if it's simply a guideline, it could actually enhance the conversation flow.
That's exactly right. It's a tool, not a cage. Use it to help your brain organize ideas fast, and your speaking will sound much more like a real conversation.
All right, but let's stress test this. What about tricky questions that ask, why do some people dislike social media? Isn't the answer too big to just say in one sentence?
Good challenge. In that case, you can still start with a clear, core answer. I think some dislike social media because it feels overwhelming. Then you expand with a reason and example. That's manageable.
But doesn't that risk oversimplifying the answer? The real reasons could be complex. Privacy, addiction, misinformation.
Perhaps, but in IELTS, you're not expected to analyze deeply in one answer. Giving a clear, simple opinion and backing it up with 1 or 2 points shows language ability and coherence perfectly.
I guess that's the difference between academic debate and speaking test. You're focusing on clarity and flow rather than exhaustive detail.
Exactly, and the primacy effect helps here again. The first clear idea you give sets the tone. If it's muddled or weak, the examiner might lose interest.
So the takeaway is, clarity first doesn't limit your thinking. It channels it for better communication.
Spot on. And ultimately, IELTS rewards clear, confident communication more than endless wandering sentences.
Okay, Leo, you've convinced me. Answer first, then expand. It's not just a trick, it's a real skill.
Glad to hear it. And remember, that skill will help beyond IELTS in presentations, interviews, daily conversations.
Thanks for pushing back on this. It's important to weigh both sides before picking a method.
That's how we learn best.
Next time I'll try to stop myself from wandering and just say what I mean first.
And I'll help remind you if you start a documentary introduction again.
Deal. So far, we've seen how answering first and then expanding helps you stay clear and confident during IELTS speaking.
Yeah, getting straight to the point keeps your answer strong, and using reasons and examples makes it natural.
Now, we're about to dive into 5 important expressions that tie perfectly into what we've just practiced.
These words will help you give a clear answer and back it up smoothly. Plus, they'll make your speaking sound more native.
Ready to explore how to use phrases like in other words and, for instance, in real conversations? Let's jump into our word tour. So now we're in the part where the pattern becomes language, and the language becomes easy to reuse.
Right, because we didn't just want a nice idea. We wanted phrases you can actually grab in the exam when your mind feels busy.
Let's go back to the first phrase we kept leaning on in the story, straight to the point. When you use that, you're saying the main idea first, without extra wandering.
It's like walking into a room and saying what you came for. No circles, no fog, no dramatic opening scene.
Exactly. In an else answer, straight to the point doesn't mean rude. It means clean. It means the examiner hears your position right away.
For example, if someone asks, "Do you like crowded places?" you could say, "Not really. I prefer quiet places." That's straight to the point. And then you can add more.
And that links to the next phrase beautifully. Give a clear answer. That phrase is all about being easy to follow.
So if your answer is "yes, I do" or "no, I don't," that's not boring. That's actually helpful because the listener knows where you stand immediately.
Right. And after you give a clear answer, you can build on it. You're not stuck. You're just starting in the right place.
Think of it like a doorway. A clear answer is the door. Without it, the listener is wandering around outside, which is awkward for everyone.
That image is too accurate. Now, once the door is open, you often need to back it up.
Yes, this phrase means you support your opinion with a reason or an example. It tells the examiner, "I'm not just saying this. I can explain it."
So if you say, I prefer evenings, you can back it up with, because I'm more relaxed after work. That makes the answer feel complete.
And if you want to go one step further, you could say, "For instance, I usually listen to music and unwind." Now the opinion has weight.
That's important because IELTS speaking isn't just about opinions. It's about showing you can support them naturally.
And sometimes when the idea feels a little long, you need in other words. This phrase helps you say the same thing more simply.
Exactly. It's a paraphrase bridge. You say one version, then you make it easier to follow.
So if you say, "I prefer evenings because I can recharge," you might add, "In other words, I feel less mentally tired at night." That second line helps the listener catch your meaning fast.
That's a very useful move in the exam because sometimes your first sentence is fine, but you want to make the idea clearer before moving on.
It's like a quick rescue rope for your own sentence.
Now let's talk about for instance. This one introduces a specific example and it keeps your answer grounded in real life.
So instead of saying, "I like evenings because they're peaceful," you could say, "For instance, after dinner, I read for 20 minutes. That tiny example makes your answer believable.
And notice how natural it feels when the example is small. It doesn't need to be dramatic, it just needs to be concrete.
Please don't give the examiner a life story about a heroic sunrise unless they asked for one. Simple examples are often stronger.
True. A tiny example is usually enough to back it up and keep the answer moving.
Let's hear them together in one answer. I prefer evenings. I'm more relaxed after work. In other words, I can think more clearly at night. For instance, I often plan my next day after dinner.
That sounds calm, organized, and human. The answer comes first, the support follows, and the example lands nicely.
And the best part is that you can reuse the same structure for almost any IELTS question.
So when your brain wants to over-explain, remember this rhythm. Clear answer, support, simple example. Then move on.
That rhythm is what makes your speaking sound confident instead of crowded.
And it's much easier to remember in the room because it's not a script, it's a habit.
Exactly. And once the habit is there, the words do a lot of the work for you.
Which is nice because on test day, we all appreciate any help we can get.
Absolutely.
So today's big idea was simple. Answer first, then expand. In IELTS speaking, that order helps you sound calm, clear, and easy to follow.
And we saw how straight-to-the-point answers can still sound natural when you give a clear answer, then back it up with one reason or one small example.
My favorite part is that this isn't about sounding perfect. It's about sounding organized. That's a huge difference when the clock is moving and your nerves are loud.
Yeah, and here's a practical way to train it. Take one question a day, answer in one sentence, then add one because clause, then one example. Keep it short, keep it real.
Another tip, if you notice yourself rambling, stop and reset with "in other words." That tiny phrase helps you simplify your idea before it gets messy.
And when you want to prove your point, drop in, for instance. One concrete detail often does more work than 5 extra sentences.
I still remember doing something like this when I first practiced speaking. I tried to sound impressive, and I'd end up sounding unclear. The minute I started answering first, I felt more in control, and honestly a lot less stressed.
That's the shift. You're not waiting for the perfect sentence anymore. You're building a reliable habit that works under pressure.
So try it this week. One question, one clear answer, one reason, one example. That's enough to change the shape of your speaking.
And if you want a bigger challenge, record yourself and listen back once. Not to judge yourself, just to check whether the answer arrives early enough.
We'd love to hear from you. Before you go, we want to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, what IELTS question makes you ramble the most?
We read every single comment. Thanks for listening, and next time we can go even deeper into speaking habits that make your English sound more natural.
Until then, keep it simple, keep it clear, and trust the first answer.
Bye for now.